Welcome everyone to this week's IPLD sync meeting. It's January the 17th, 2022. It's the first meeting this year and it's the first meeting for a long time. So great to see so many people here and so many familiar faces. So let's go to the, so as every 2 weeks, we go over the stuff that we've worked on or plan to work on, and then also discuss any open agenda items we might have. And for me, it's a great start into this year because I even have IPLD updates this time. So currently I spend quite some time on Rust IPLD things. And yeah, so it's already started in the past year that there's lots of stuff going on the Rust multi-format stuff. If anyone is interested, check out the next branches. There are many things, but the most notable ones are we're moving to const generics, as they are in the form that we need them, are a stable feature in Rust now. And also better support for no standard, which means that you don't need to have the standard library, which is mostly important also for work if you want to work and want to run things in the WebAssembly. You normally don't want to bundle the whole standards library, so it's useful there. And in regards to Rust IPLD itself, I forgot to mention that Rust IPLD moved from its own org into the IPLD org. So now you can find the most current version under github.com/IPLD/libIPLD. That's the Rust implementation. And yeah, we spent some time on it. And currently it's in development, but plenty of things will change. The most notable one again is that we're trying to move to use Serde, which is the standard serialization library for Rust. And those who have been following these meetings for the past few years, I've always said that IPLD is not possible to use with Serde. We should do it somehow differently. Thankfully, Stephen also spent some time on it and convinced me that it is possible. The small catch here, or the reason why I thought it's not possible, is that the way we now use Serde is really as a framework or a library to use serialization and deserialization. And it's not really a buy-in into the whole ecosystem. What it means is you can't magically use then all the formats they already have, plug it in, and it will do the right IPLD thing. But what you will need to do is you need to have special formats for IPLD to make it work seamlessly. But as we also discovered in other languages within the IPLD team was that we would want to write our own serialization codecs anyway. So we've done it, for example, in JavaScript as well, that we don't really want to use a stock CBOR implementation, but want to have a specific one where we tweak our things and really make it specific to DAG CBOR or DAG JSON. So, and as we do this work anyway, we can also just patch some existing library, make it into DAG CBOR where we need to make changes anyway, and then make it seamlessly work with the whole CID stuff. Because like the thing that doesn't work quite that nicely with Serde is the CID. But if you have an implementation of a format which understands how CIDs work or understand the CID type, then everything is fine. So what it means for an end user is you can use Serde, you can use the macro derives. If you have types that serialize to Serde, they automatically end up correctly formatted in IPLD and so on. The only thing is if you want to use CBOR, you can't use a stock CBOR encoder, but you use the DAG CBOR one, which you would want to use anyway. But given all this, the tweaks for your format in order to work with the IPLD world should be quite minimal. So even if we say we want to have a new codec, which is not CBOR, but let's say Amazon Ion, it should be a matter of a day patching it or something. So it's not like a huge development effort. All right. So, but this is currently pushed to random branches, but the plan is to really get it properly done and that it actually works. And yeah, so this is kind of huge news. Yeah, and that's all I have for now from the Rust world. So next on my list is Danielle.
So I've been pretty heads down on GraphSync. I'm sort of now phasing that into some more IPLD work, not being centered around GraphSync so much. But some of the things I landed over the last couple of weeks, which I did mention at the last call already, is support for enums and any. And I also ended up making enums that represent themselves as integers, essentially allowing them to bind to Go integers, which is one of those cases that you say, like, why not? And it works quite nicely. And I also wrote a rough benchmark for the GraphSync protocol, putting protobuf Go versus IPLD prime with tag CBOR and bind node. And it is slower. That's to be expected because protobuf is very well optimized and they don't have the abstraction layers that we do. But we're only about 2 to 3 times as slow, which is good news in the sense that we're not that far. And we haven't optimized many of the libraries a lot just yet. And it seems like GraphSync is on track to using IPLD and shipping soon, but I think Rod will talk about that. There are a few bugs that have been filed recently, and a couple of them are blocking the actual release of GraphSync with IPLD. So I'm looking at those right now, and I think I'll ping Rod with some branches to try out by the end of this call.
Thanks. Next on the list is Big Lab.
Cool. Yeah. Hi. That's me. No, I'm newer.
And we can't hear you, or at least I can't.
I can.
My. Why don't we? I'll get a different headset. Why don't you skip me? I'll go next.
It works now, so we can hear you. If you want to go now.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah. Thanks all. Yeah. I'm Big Leopard or Steve. And yeah, I know my first time at this meeting. Thanks for letting me join. More on the management end. Just more in general across PL's. Some of the PL's teams focused on some recruiting efforts and just flipping some more of our communication is happening in public that will apply to IPLD, but this is an exclusive IPLD effort. So hopefully I have more to share at the future meeting, but that's kind of where I'm at. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Rod.
Yes. Now I don't have heaps, but got one thing to discuss anyway. Did some minor things in JavaScript land the last couple of weeks, mainly around JS multi-formats, our core library that we use for IPLD things. Ghazala contributed some types fixes. This is just ongoing drama with typing, exporting TypeScript types from our JavaScript libraries. We find situations where they're not exported properly, or they're not generated properly, or and it turns out to be something that's really difficult to test for. We've got tests for some of these things, but it just depends on how you consume them, and it's a bit crazy. So and the same thing goes for our ES modules versus CommonJS exports. I think Alex is starting to migrate some other JavaScript libraries to pure ES modules, and I'm also seeing some pure TypeScript work going on. So one solution to all of this is just to write everything in TypeScript and export only as ES modules, and then a lot of these problems start to disappear. But for now, this is our core library that if you're touching anything to do with IPLD and therefore anything to do with IPFS in JavaScript, then you're using this library. So we sort of want to make it maximally compatible. We had at least one balked release that was thankfully caught within a few hours that we managed to fix as we try and tweak and fix some of these types things. Anyway, that's just this ongoing dance that we do with that library. And then we take what we learn there and apply it to other libraries. Aside from that, I've been playing around with Daniel's excellent bind node stuff, thanks to the GraphSync messaging migration, and picking up some problems to throw over the fence to Daniel to have a look at, which sounds like he's got some work on. Mainly to do with pointers and nullables and optionals. So because the original schema that Daniel put together didn't have any nullables, and I've been trying to make the messaging protocol more complete, because there's messages where some of the elements are omitted. So trying with what was I doing? Optionals first, and then things go missing from the struct, which means the struct is shorter, and then the CBOR encoding doesn't come out right because bind node was reporting the length of the map to be the length of the struct with all the fields, but then it gets encoded as shorter. And so that resulted in a pull request 333 to IPLD prime, which builds in that check to the CBOR and even the JSON, which might not make sense, but it's just one of these checks where if a node is reporting, a map node is reporting a length, and then it doesn't give you that many elements, that should be an error. That's like a fatal kind of error because you've got a programming problem there. So that's going in there, and those tests are currently failing. Well, yesterday they were anyway with bind node. And a couple of other things there. I did want to talk about, and maybe this is a discussion topic, but I want to talk about the schema. So Daniel did a first pass at the schema for the IPLD. So yeah, the DAG CBOR messaging in GraphSync. It's a bulky schema, as in it uses maps, and even though the keys are shortened, it's way more than the protobuf. Like, yeah, and it's way more than what you could do if say we chose tuples. And the other part of that discussion is the versioning. So we've got this migrations concept of that migration stock that Eric wrote up a couple of years ago. That's in our IPLD documentation repo, with some best practices for versioning. But we have this additional thing where we can version within the protocol, where we're talking, we can send a version string ahead of time to switch on different versions. But we have the opportunity now, as we do this major migration from protobuf to DAG CBOR, where we could say, well, let's make it just one DAG CBOR version where our decoder, our DAG CBOR decoder, can do the versioning. So we can use schemas to do versioning within that single protocol version, or we could rely on protocol versioning to switch between different message formats. So that's a discussion I wouldn't mind having, not necessarily on this call, but we're getting closer to being able to ship something, and I don't really want to lock in a bulky schema or one that is less flexible than we want. Yeah.
All right.
Maybe I'll stop there and let Eric talk.
Yeah. So Eric, do you have any updates?
I don't have a ton of updates because I think I'm still kind of recovering from the winter hiatus a bit. I'm skimming the schema that Rod was just referring to, and I think you kind of already broke down all of the potential choices and trade-offs, or at least most of them, right? So I guess the questions will mostly be, how far do we want to shift between binary, illegible, but highly compact, and more textual, more self-describing, easier to eyeball? Maybe the solution will be somewhere in the middle too. We have the option of doing verbose map keys in like the outermost objects, and then if you go deeper into the more highly repeated objects, then you can go tuples and see if that strikes a balance. But I won't have strong opinions on this. you've got the tools. Other updates for me, I actually do not have a ton right now. Mosina and I have been chatting a lot lately. We've been starting to, yeah, I'm calling you out, sorry. We've been starting to work on outlines of what we might want from an IPLD patch spec, and starting to at least think out loud about what we might try to pursue in more Golang APIs for updating objects. We want to find some combination of APIs that will let us describe patch operations sort of declaratively, but figure out exactly how to drill this all the way through the library so that you can hand information to a node implementation that it could use to find fast paths and like use any internal copy on write features that it might have. So if you're dealing with really small data, this wouldn't matter at all. But if you want to deal with, let's say, a node that is backed by an ADL that contains a HAMP that contains 1 billion entries, then making sure that it actually performs copy on write is kind of important, right? So we need to figure out APIs for that stuff, and we want to have something that works pretty generically too, and then try to build patch on top of that. This is all very preliminary right now. If anyone out there has opinions on that or wants to draft APIs with us, come chat. I have nothing to show for this at the moment either. Hopefully this will evolve into GIST sometime soon, very early.
Cool, thanks. Does anyone else have any updates or anything to share or, I don't know, to say before we get into more questions? Nope, cool. Yeah, I saw on the chat, I saw that Steve had some questions I can quickly answer. The current Rust IPLD effort is driven by the Filecoin virtual machine, which is also the reason why I currently spend time on it, because I'm currently in a totally different team. But I was asked if I would like to help out, and I obviously wanted to. So the plan was I help out till the end of the year, which obviously is over now. So I'm finishing some things up, and yeah, we just need to discuss how much time I will spend on this. But so my current plan would be that I spend something like a day a week or something on those things, but we'll see. So this just, yeah, I need to discuss it with my manager and so on, but we'll see. But as you can see, I'm super excited about those things. So I hopefully can spend more time on this. And yes, so I have written code to run my code against the test fixtures that we have. I make it pass with the old version, but the assertive version is basically the next step is to make it work against the fixtures, but I already have the Rust code running the whole machinery. So basically once it ships, it will pass all the tests that we have in the test fixtures. So yeah, cool. All right. So yeah, is there anything else people want to discuss or have questions? So also, I saw that there's a question on the live stream. Let me quickly check. This is it a new question? I don't know, but it's a general IPFS question. So the question for those who don't see the live stream is the question is about someone who is a Flutter developer and wants to know how to use IPFS for storing the data. I can't really tell, but I would refer to the, we have discussions forums for IPFS. So I suggest asking the question there. There might be better chances of people helping. All right, anything else? No, all right. Then it was a quick meeting, and we see us again same time in 2 weeks. So goodbye, everyone, and thanks for attending. Bye, everyone.